Welcome to Cigar Church, where our passion for cigars and our love for Jesus come together. And we are here at El Guapo Cigar Lounge in Joplin, Missouri for a second time. Great lounge. We love this place. Super unique place. And we've got a new face on the podcast with us today. This is my friend Jared Ellis from Kansas, from little tiny town in Kansas. Iola, Kansas. And we're going to get to that just in a second and why he's with us. We've got Dan over here, Steve over here, and we are smoking cigars that we would never smoke.
We swore we'd never do it.
We swore we'd never do an episode about this. When we sat down and started visioneering the idea of Cigar Church, the first thing that came out of my mouth is we will never do an episode about flavored cigars.
Yep. Wow. And on top of that, this is a podcast or episode about being men.
Exactly. I mean, this guy is the most manly man. Nothing against you and your beard. This guy is the most manly man I know. And we got to talking about bringing him on the podcast. And I'm like, okay, what cigars do you want to smoke? And he's like, oh man, you know what I smoke? And I'm like, no, I don't. What do you smoke? And he started talking about all these flavored cigars. And I'm like, oh crap. If we're going to bring him on, and his message is important enough to have him here, what he's doing is important enough to have him here, we decided that we would take one for you guys. So as we start off every single episode, what are we smoking, guys? No. Steve, what do you got, buddy?
A Drew Estate, Deadwood Sisters, the Leather Rose. And I don't remember much about it besides it's kind of a pipe tobacco, if I remember right, right?
It's based off of the Deadwood pipe tobacco.
Yeah. Yep. And it's sweet tipped. I'm feeling really masculine right now, really manly.
Yeah, so. I'm pretty sure your beard shrunk the second you lit that. Your beard lost like 2 inches.
Yeah, it's kind of a Tim Allen Santa Claus thing. Sanification.
It's a reverse, right? I'm surprised you didn't do the research on it and get all the notes for us.
No, I figured I'll just wing this one.
Dan, what do you got, brother?
So I am also doing a Drew Estate Deadwood Sister. This is the Crazy Alice.
Yep.
And I will say this. Deadwood has a special place in my heart because the Deadwood Sisters, years ago, that's kind of where I cut my teeth, was on the Deadwood Sisters. I actually have a stack of the Deadwood Sister boxes in my office as like a
an homage
decor. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because I love the sugar skulls, that whole,
the imagery. They are beautiful boxes.
Yeah, they really are gorgeous.
And they're a good beginner. Not a beginner, but they're a good cigar for somebody's starting spot.
Yeah.
And this is
it's got good tobacco in it for a
exactly.
It does. I mean, the sweet tip was a little hard to get used to. But like I said, haven't had it for a while. I can live with it. I can do it. I can do this.
Yeah. All right.
I feel kind of manly though. The more I smoke this, the more clay, a little cuter over there.
I'm gonna sit over here by Jared. Man, that went weird real quick.
This
is gonna be a strange episode, guys. Just get ready for it. It's the cigar.
I'm feeling sweet. I'm feeling sweet.
I'm smoking on the Macanudo Espresso and Cream. I'm cheating a little bit, according to you guys. It's more of a regular cigar that's just got some infusion.
More coffee-ish.
It's more coffee. Here's what I love about the cigar. I will say I love this cigar when somebody next to me is smoking it. It is the best smelling cigar. It smells like a hot chocolate. Like when you first get that hot chocolate and you get a good nose of that hot chocolate, that's exactly what it smells like when you're sitting next to you. It does not taste like that when you're smoking it. It's got more of a coffee note to it. It's definitely sweet tip cigar. And it's not bad. But I'm gonna smoke this through today. Here's what, we're gonna talk about your cigar here in just a second, Jared. But here's what I noticed just out of you Deadwood Sister guys right now. Dan beat you. You know how? You guys smoked that whole cigar, and he picked the smallest of the Deadwood cigars.
He picked his first, though.
But I will say this: the Crazy Alice is my favorite of the four.
Okay.
Used to be the Fat Bottom Betty was my go-to years ago. I actually smoked several of those. Haven't smoked a Deadwood in years, but the Crazy Alice is probably the last one I smoked. A little darker.
Yeah.
It's a Maduro wrapper, and it's Nicaraguan. The filler and the binder is Nicaraguan. The Connecticut broadleaf.
Yeah.
I'm not hating it. Okay.
Not hating it.
And let me say, we joke a lot. If you smoke flavored cigars, you do you. You do you, Jared.
Yeah.
It
being the guest of honor, we're going to rib him a lot today.
Yeah, we have
the flavored cigar. This is probably the realest you can get to be in like a real cigar.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Jared, you don't even know what you're smoking.
No, I have no idea.
So you're gonna have to relight that a few times, I'm sure. It's a Lancero. It's an Asylum Auntie, and just got those this week actually at our home shop. They've had them for a while, but I just picked them up this week. It is a flavor infused cigar. You get a lot of sweet notes off of that, obviously right off the bat. From what the rep told me, that's a crisp apple and bourbon.
No, brandy.
Brandy, my bad. A crisp apple and brandy. That sounds terrible in a cigar.
He also said that when you get it down closer to the end, it's when it really kicks in.
Yeah, that brandy side of it really kicks in. So what do you think so far? What?
You taste the apple.
Yeah, yeah.
The apple's there.
Yeah.
I don't know much about alcohol.
Right,
So,
right.
as far as brandy, I wouldn't know.
Not yet, yeah.
But it's punchy.
Is it?
It's punchy.
You like it, or is it
I like
too much?
it. It's. I mean, the go-to's the leather rose.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the go-to.
So what's your draw to that? Like, what? I mean, like I said.
All right, so my first cigar experience was in Washington, D.C., walking down Georgetown. And if you've never been to Georgetown Tobacco, it is one of the coolest shops
Okay.
you can ever go in.
Put that on the list.
It is about this wide,
Okay.
and it's about, I don't know, it seems like it's 50 yards long.
Wow. Wow.
And coming in off of Georgetown, they just, and this is in the winter, this is during Christmas.
Right, right.
Snow's falling.
Oh yeah.
It's a very patriotic time.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in DC. I mean, it's a cool environment.
Yeah.
And so me and a friend, we come off of Georgetown, we step into Georgetown Tobacco, and when you walk into it, you go back in time. I mean, it's like like the people around you. It's the same thing that you appreciate about a cigar lounge now. You recognize that there's people here. There's an agreement that you like fine things, you like leather furniture, you like dark rooms, you like low light.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's a thing that's universal in good lounges.
Right.
You know,
Right.
you get in some bad lounges where it's a amped up Buffalo Wild Wings.
Right,
And that is
right.
not my flavor at
Right.
all. It's like there's more TVs than there are people.
Right.
I mean, that's one of the things I appreciate about this place. Like,
Yeah.
it's not, you know, Dave and Buster's, you know, for men. I mean, it's a nice, distinguished place where you go and you sit and you know you've got something in common.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the reason why the conversations flow so easy in a cigar lounge.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
Than in a lot of other places. So anyway, so you go into this place, and this is not a lounge, this is a shop. And it's just wall-to-wall cigars.
Wow.
Like the room is the humidor.
Oh, nice.
And
Nice.
shelves, glass cases, all the way around. And when you walk in, there's a flow to the room. And you walk in one side, and you go around this island in the middle, and then you
Come
go
back around.
out
Yeah.
the door.
Yeah.
And my first cigar experience was a Royal Jamaica, which I don't even know if you've even...
I've heard of them. I've never had one, never even seen one.
Okay, Royal Jamaica, tissue wrap, torpedo,
Yep.
Maduro.
Yeah.
I mean, an awesome cigar. Come out of the shop, I'm so amped up. Got our own, you know, customary cutter.
Yep. Yep.
What do they just give it to you? Here you
Yep.
go.
Little $3 cutter type deal, plastic. Yeah. Yep.
Clip the dude, light it, walk down Georgetown. Snow's falling. Everybody there's rich and sexy.
Yep.
It's like, it's the coolest experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that led to H. Upman's, Partegas, Romeo and Juliet's, Monte Cristos, and I smoked all those for years. Like those were. Then I found the Macanudo Hampton Court Maduro.
Yeah.
Now
yeah.
you can find the Macanudo Maduro.
And I thought I had one for you. I told you that. I didn't. I looked, and it's just the regular Maduro.
Yeah.
And I had a Hampton Court, but not the Hampton Court Maduro.
And that's a hard one to find.
Yeah, it is.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
And so, like, I was a real cigar smoker for a long time.
Yeah.
And then they came out with all the acids, and that really ruined cigars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I was like, these are crap. These are
they really are.
absolute-
Yeah. Sorry, Drew Estate. They're crap.
They're crap.
And if you like them, we love you. We don't like your cigar.
I mean, it's there's people who love them. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
smoking
It is the number one selling cigar
sure.
brand in the world. Cigar lounges cannot keep them in stock, but I don't get it.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't like them at all.
Yeah.
And then this series came out.
Deadwoods.
Yep. And when those came out, it was over. I was like,
Yeah, this is it.
this is the blend. This
Yeah.
is the one I like.
So do you smoke a pipe?
I have.
You have.
I don't.
I thought, yeah,
I
thought
love
you
the
did.
smell,
I
but
thought you did.
it's
Okay.
a horrible taste.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's one brand of pipe tobacco that's pretty good, and I won't remember the name. It's like Malto Olva. I can't remember the name of it. But if you get your hands on some, it's awesome.
Well, the reason I ask is those are based off of the pipe tobacco.
And then they smell
And
like
so,
it. But
I'm
these
sitting there
taste
going,
better.
if that's
These
your
taste better than
favorite, I'm
pipe.
wondering if you enjoy the pipe. So,
Nah, I mean, you babysit a pipe, and if
yeah.
you're not good at it,
yeah, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
Gee,
it really
I don't
is.
have the attention span to do
No,
that.
now what I do love about it, and this is just where my own curiosity. There's a lot of gadgets that come with a pipe.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
kind of dig that.
Yeah.
You're scraping something and you're packing
Yeah.
something and you're
Stamper.
you're doing all this. Yeah, you're doing all the. You got your
Yeah.
little utensil and you're freaking tamping it. And you're running your pipe cleaners through
Yeah.
and like there's a lot of cool stuff to it.
Yeah.
But it's a little much.
Yeah.
It's just a
It's
little
tedious.
And-
It's
and-
probably a really good word for
And
it.
tamping, there's an art form to
Yeah, there
tamping that
is.
thing to make sure it stays lit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't
Yeah.
it doesn't burn the bowl up in your hand.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
you get it about
Ruin that wood.
9,000
Yeah.
degrees. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something. I mean, Alex here. If you ever want to know about pipe smoking,
For sure.
come see Alex here.
Yeah,
He's
Alex,
a
yeah.
genius.
He's
at
got
it.
a great selection.
Yeah, he's a genius at it. So, we brought you on for a reason. When we talk
Other than making fun of.
Yeah, dude, we're not going to make fun of you. We're going to pick at you a little bit, but these guys have never met Jared until we brought him on the show. I've known Jared for, 5-6 years.
Yeah.
And Jared has spoken to my life in a lot of different ways. We met through our friend Sergio.
Yep.
And Sergio is the master of networking, so that's how we got together. And Jared does this thing called the Homilist Podcast. And if you're a preacher or are in any way in the teaching vocation in the church, you need to check out the Homilist Podcast. I mean, it's great if you're not a preacher, but preachers will definitely get more out of it than non-preachers.
Yeah.
But here's the funny thing. We get together, we're talking, and this is in the early stages of me starting to do ministry in the cigar lounge. I just started a Bible study in the cigar lounge. I was at a church that didn't really accept that, so I'm real secretive about it. Sergio calls this guy up and says, "Hey, I got this buddy Clay. You need to talk to him on the Homilist Podcast. He's got a good story to tell." He calls me up and says, "Hey, you need to talk to my buddy Jared. He's got this podcast."
Yeah.
So we get hooked up. We talk a little bit. We go to film this episode, and it is absolute trash. Do you remember that? Do you still got that copy of that anywhere?
I don't think so.
Okay, good.
You asked me to dispose
Good.
of it.
Yeah, it's gone. So it will never be aired.
But it was a beautiful moment.
Here's the thing. The podcast was terrible. But for me, it was a beautiful moment. It was one of those amazing things because I didn't know this guy from Adam. And he speaks volumes into my life that changed the direction of so many things. And I don't mean to put a lot of that on you, but it was exactly the words I needed to hear at the exact time. And do you remember what you said to me right in the middle of the podcast?
Yeah,
What'd you say?
I remember you want me to tell the story?
Yeah, tell the story, man. Tell the story.
This is why I'm so excited that you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you're not the same dude
I'm not.
You're not
at
the same
all.
dude.
Not at all.
as you were in that podcast. We were talking and you were talking about church and you were so kind, which is a thing that you have. I mean, the spiritual gifts, like just the fruit of the Spirit that comes out in your life is just kindness. Like you're good at being kind.
Yeah, thanks, man.
And as we're talking, I'm listening to you talk about your church and you're being so kind. My experience in church has not been one where people have, it was not reflective of what you were saying about the church.
Yeah.
My experience
Yeah.
in church had been pretty busted. I've been fired from 2 churches.
Yep.
And you're talking about the church in a way that I'm going, this has not been my experience at all. And I'm listening, I'm like, I'm glad it's been this way but as we're
But
talking.
it wasn't authentic.
But I don't know that,
Yeah.
and I'm a horrible
Yeah.
judge of character.
Yeah.
Like, you know those people who can just like look at someone and be like, I can tell something's not right. Like, or somebody walks in the room and you're just like, that's a bad guy. Like, I don't have any of that. Like,
Yeah.
if the kingdom was a castle, I wouldn't be a watchman because as people show up, I'm like, more friends, you know. And that's the last thing that.
And I love that about you, but
it shouldn't be on top of the walls. where it should
Right,
be.
exactly.
So he's the husky of the man world?
Yes,
Yes. Yeah.
100%. I'm ready to pull a sled, ready to bite a wolf, you know. But like, if anything,
But you're the
else,
one partying with the jester.
yeah, exactly right. I
Yeah.
want to wag my tail and play fetch.
Yeah.
You know, you want to do
Yeah.
something fun, like that's
you.
But as I'm sitting there and I'm listening to you, and I'm appreciating everything you're saying because it's coming from a place where what you were saying was true. Like it was all the kind things. But as I'm talking to you, and listen, this is gonna sound super weird, all right? Because this is not how God typically works in my life. What I see on the screen in front of me is you, because we're doing this by Zoom.
Yep.
And then it's like this is so flaky sounding.
Well, you're smoking a flavored cigar.
Okay, all right, so it fits. It
I
fits.
wasn't going to say it.
It fits.
You don't know it well. Throw it out there. Man. Come on.
No, you
Don't hold back.
Go right
Steve.
ahead. Don't hold back, please. So I'm looking at you, and it's like God pulls back the curtain on who you are, and what I see is a dude who's really, really angry.
Man, dude, I'm getting butterflies in my stomach right now. You telling this?
Like
I really am.
you look angry, and it's not like bad anger. It's like I remember this. Like I don't even remember which arm it's on, but when you begin to talk about the flames,
Yeah.
right, in
Yeah.
the Jude passage,
Yeah.
like I remember this,
Yeah.
snatching some from the flame,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, and knowing that's where your heart was,
Yeah.
and then seeing that anger, and I'm going, this doesn't work. And it's like God took the curtain and pulled it back, and what I saw was this angry, like I can't serve the Lord like I'm trying to serve
Yeah.
the Lord. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just ask you,
Yeah. This statement, this question right here, it stopped me in my tracks, bro.
and it's in retrospect, it was funny, and it was not, and I don't.
My answer was the funny part, but go ahead. Go ahead.
I've never seen anybody drop a transmission so fast in my life. Like, he hit the freaking gears, and he's grinding gears. But I just look at him and I said, do you find it hard to keep that dragon of anger, that monster of anger, inside?
Yeah. You said caged up.
Caged up.
Yeah. You said caged up, and that just threw me, man.
And I mean, you were just like, no, the church is good. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, hey, and it's like this. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like,
Yeah.
do you like there's fire, like there's fire in there, guy. Like you're talking kind, but there's there's fire in there, you know?
Yeah.
And then you started grinding gears, and you were like, no, like I love the church, and I'm like, yeah, I hear you, and you're like, and then I'm just like, I feel bad because I've jacked up the episode. I've jacked you up. Me and you don't even really know each other well enough.
Yeah.
And I'm calling you out, and I'm not even trying to. I mean, it wasn't even like in a bold moment of like I'm going to charge my brother on with. It wasn't even that. It was just like my own curiosity of like, whoa,
What'd I see? What was that?
what was that thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you were like, no, the church is good, and I got a great relationship with these people, and I'm
Yeah.
like, there's no doubt, because
Yeah.
you're kind.
Yeah.
I know you do.
Yeah.
But what I'm talking about is that other thing, like the fire that you have, which, I mean, brings me to the place of like, dude, what you're doing now, like such a better.
So the conversations that were going on that you weren't aware of at the time, I had already started having conversations with a group out of Dallas to plant a church, and one of the head guys in that group just kept going, dude, when are you going to pull the trigger? And I'm not going to use the language that he used, but he said, when are you going to start blowing stuff up? And I misunderstood that too, because I'm sitting there going, man, I can't throw a hand grenade into the church. You know, because I had seen so many pastors leave churches and just lob a grenade behind them, and everything just goes to pot as soon as they leave. And I'm sitting there going, is that what he's telling me to do? But no, he was asking the same question you asked, was when are you going to go do something that's impactful? And I had another friend at the time who said, look, you're trying to be somebody you're not. And what was powerful about that, he said, there's thousands of pastors out there that are the way you're trying to be. there's not any other pastors out there that have the heart that you have for the people that you have, and which ends up being the Cigar Lounge. But what was deep in me at the time was 20 years of doing church in traditional settings, and being raised and trained in that environment.
In your home church?
In my home. Well, it was a sister church to my home church, you know, down the street, but in my hometown. And there was just all of this baggage from what church is supposed to be. But the beast that you saw, that dragon, was the desire for so much more, knowing that yes, the church is good, and I believed all of that, but I was trying to force a false truth on that's the only way the church can be, and I was trying to fit that mold, and clearly I don't fit anybody's mold. And that's fine, but I'd never been given permission to be different.
Right.
And so over the next few years, that morphed into Identity Church that I'm the pastor of, and we meet in a whiskey lounge. It's a cigar church that we're doing here, and just some beautiful things that happen. So man, thank you for speaking into my life that way.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you,
man.
It's very
and
cool.
it was really cool, and I wouldn't know these guys if it wasn't for that, and the ministry that we get to share together. And then on top of all that, this guy right here is the most quiet dude in the world. Man, you can't get 2 words out of him, and this guy's come alive through this podcast, through this show, and man, he's reaching people more than the rest of us. He's doing shorts all the time and getting out there and talking about his it's awesome. And that wouldn't be happening if it didn't start back with you.
Well, listen, I mean, that was a cool moment. And it was one of those ones that when I left, I was like, you just screwed this dude up. You screwed up the episode. You
did,
you know,
in all the right ways.
And it was one of those things, though, like over and over, though, isn't this it's exactly what you want to happen to you? When it comes to, you know, masculinity, when it comes to, especially with ministry. You know, I was just talking to this guy the other day, and we were having this conversation about, because I struggle with that too. I mean, part of the reason the Homilist podcast came into being was because everybody's got a shtick. All these preachers, they all have their own way of they do a certain thing. So I talked about,
and some do it well and some don't.
Well, and the guys that I was interviewing, let me just toss out some names. You take a guy like Bob Russell. Bob Russell's got this fatherly wisdom thing to him. Like, well, here's the deal, Jared. You know, if a man doesn't let the sun go down on his anger with his fights with his wife, and he prays with her, it's like, he'll have a good marriage. And it's like,
great truth.
You know, so you got Dave Stone, and Dave Stone's like this aloof stand-up comedy, like a TV sitcom dad. You know, just goofy, self-deprecating, just you know, he does that well. And Kyle Outman's he's just slick with this softness, and
every word has purpose in what he says.
Polished and good, but it's him. You know, it's authentic. And you know, and you get your you know, your Albert Tates or your, you know, Dave Erickson, who's this, you know, monster of a storyteller. You know, who could read you, you know, War and Peace, and you would sit and listen to the whole thing because you love his voice, you know. And any guy, and so what I'm trying to do is my own curiosity, like, I'm a pastor at a church, and I don't have any. These guys are doing things I don't even know if I'm built for this. Like I feel like everything I'm saying is backwards, because every church person I know is like, you probably shouldn't do that. You probably shouldn't say that. You probably shouldn't. And which is a lot of what you felt. That same thing of, and it's like, golly, like, I don't know what my thing is. All right. So let me fast forward, and not to run you off course with this storytelling, but part of what I've kind of figured out just for myself is this: if you can figure out what you're for, you know, I was just talking to my kids about this last night. If you can figure out what you're for, like the thing that you are actually, what are you made for? And I don't mean necessarily your calling, and I don't mean your job, but like, what is it that you do that you would do in your church, you do at the gym, you do at the lounge, you do on the street? What is that thing that you do? And if you know that thing, that's more important. That's the identity piece. That's more the identity piece of a person than whatever your label is, or whatever your job is, or whatever thing you're trying to accomplish. It's like, figure that thing out. And so here's the story I came up with to kind of help do it, right? So imagine like heaven, right? And so from the camera's on the backside, and it's coming in over the shoulder of God. Jesus is there, and you're just seeing everybody from the back. The angels are there, wings everywhere. The Holy Spirit's whispering around in a way that, however that works. And there's angels, and they're just peeking over God's shoulder, like they're so curious about what their dad's doing. And their dad's working on something. You can't see his face. You just see like an ear and part of the beard, and he's working diligently, like that. And everybody's just they're just got their eyes, and they're zooming in, and you can just kind of see, like he's in the middle of something. And what he's doing is he's creating mankind. And so one by one, he's creating these people. So he creates somebody like a Sergio Rizzo, right? So he creates Sergio Rizzo and puts the key in the back.
Got that hair.
Right.
You know,
he puts a little fedora on him.
Yeah.
But he creates this Sergio Rizzo, and he puts the key in the back, and he winds him up, and he sets him down on Earth. And when he sets him down on Earth, Sergio just takes off, and immediately what's he doing? He just starts going. He's like, "Hey, Clay, do you know Dan? Hey, Dan, do you know Steve? Steve, do you know Carl? Carl, do you know
I gotta
Clay?
put you
Hey,
guys
Clay,
together.
do you know this? Hey, do you know Nathan? Hey, do you know Jared? Hey, Jared, do you know? You know? And this is what, and he just takes off, just doing the thing that he does, and you're just like, wow, this is wild. And then there's another one. It's like, he's making Jared Ellis, and so he's got Jared Ellis. He puts the key in the back. Like as soon as he pulls the key out, sets him down. He's just like, one time I was outside and I saw this guy. God, he just starts freaking just talking, ratchet jawing, like story after story, just like he's got a gun full, like clips of stories. And you just go, and you're like, what is going on? And camera just keeps coming over the shoulder, and then all of a sudden you look up and it's you.
Okay.
Now you're asleep in your bed at night, right? And you're having this dream, and in your dream, what you see is this camera come over God's shoulder, and then right there he's making you, and he's got the key, and he's winding it up. And as the camera comes over, you realize it's you.
Okay.
And then he gets ready to pull the key out, and one of the angels says, "Hey, God, Father, what did you make that one for?" And then just from the side, you just see the ear go up and a smile. Because he's about to unleash on the world something that he is so specific about.
Yeah.
And he said, "This is Clay Ashley. What's he for? What'd you make him for?" And then God says, just turns like just a little bit towards the camera, right? Just a little bit of a smile, ear goes up, and then he says, "I made this one too."
And you wake up.
You wake up from your dream.
Yeah.
It's like, how fast are you going to try to go back to sleep and get that information, you know? And I think part of what that is, I mean, for me, has been that persistent widow at the door.
Yeah.
Like, you have one piece of information that I have to have in order for me to navigate this planet.
Yeah.
And that's that. What did you make me? And I'm not leaving. I'll pray. I'll fast. I'll claw. I'll scratch. I'll bang on this door until I get this information.
Yeah.
And then when he opens it up, he just says, "You're never going to go away, are you?" And you go, "Not until I know."
Yep.
And then as soon as you know, it's like, "So what do I do?" This is what you do.
Yeah.
This is who you are. This is what you're for. And it's like, I am ready.
Yeah.
This makes worship.
Yeah.
Because now you're like, dude, I know if I'm at the gym, this is what I do.
Yeah.
You know? If I'm at the cigar lounge, this is what I do.
Yeah.
If I'm at home with my kids, this is what I do. If I'm with my wife, this is what I do. If I'm with my friends, this is the
and that thing, a couple things in that thing, you know what it is. Now you might have hit it.
True.
You might have tried to ignore it because of the way you were brought up. You might, people told you it couldn't be done or whatever. But you know what it is, because God's not going to create in you something that He's given you purpose to do, and then not revealed it to you.
Yeah.
Now you might not understand the fullness of it. You might not understand, what all that's going to mean. And I think that's part of what's beautiful about God's purposes in our life, because there's a point where you recognize that. And you really have to struggle with the meaning of that, and that takes us out of our own will into God's will, and it takes us into a dependency on Him and His strength and His power to do it. Because if it was something that we could do, it really wouldn't be that purpose that He set in us, right?
It's typically so organic. It's so organic you don't even see it. With all the Instagram influencers and all the side hustle talk and all this stuff of like, you got to figure this out and you got to figure that out, and it's like you will overlook it so fast. And then when it dawns on you, it's like, I spent a ton of time praying and fasting, asking God. I made it up. What are you for? Like, what are you for? like a post-it note.
Yeah.
Like figure this out.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you've got nothing to say, you've got nothing to do
Yep.
until you are on your hands
Yep.
and knees and you figure out this thing right here. What do you do?
Yeah.
And then once you get that, it's like, dude, every door opens up after that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and that prayer is asking God to remove all the obstacles
Sure.
between you and
Yeah.
that understanding.
That's
of
a good
what
way to
that
say
is.
it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And my theory on that too is I want you to know it's a universal fit.
Yes.
We do what we do in a cigar lounge, but that what I'm for would fit just as well in any other
That's right.
environment. It just happens that I love cigars.
Yeah.
And so it's not about the cigar, it's about that what I'm for.
Yeah.
Our mutual friend Blade, we did a couple episodes a few weeks back with, he does Whiskey Church.
Yeah.
And at the very first of it, they have a disclaimer that I just absolutely fell in love with the second he said it. He said, we're all here, we're drinking a nice glass of whiskey, but that's not what we're here for. That's just the side benefit. He said, we're here for the Word of God. We're here, and it's this reminder that, you know, yeah, the whiskey's there, yeah, the cigar's here, but that's not really what this is about.
Yeah, right.
You know, we call it Cigar Church, and too many people go, oh, it's all about cigar. No.
Yeah.
That's the hook, guys.
Yeah.
That's something we share with you that we know you like, so we can talk about the what for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure. That's
awesome.
the punchline.
So I got a question for you.
All right.
What's your what for?
Inspire.
I know part of that. I know
Okay.
part of that. So go, yeah.
Inspire those who are walking away from the faith to turn and give God another look. Like I mean, that was the thing that God spoke to my heart. Like, this is what I want you to do. So here's what this does for me as a pastor. When I preach on a Sunday morning, I don't go home and judge my sermon and feel that, you know, that feeling.
Yeah.
Like, you should have said this, you didn't say this, you
Yeah.
forgot to say that. You went off your notes and then you got stuck, or you
And
whatever.
why did I chase that rabbit?
Yeah.
You know, and later on you find out why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's true too.
Yeah.
But that whole thing of like going home and beating myself up over a sermon,
Yeah.
like, here's what my task is when I sit down to write a sermon. My task is this: write something that inspires you and that will inspire other people.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
give them just a little clearer picture of who
Yeah.
God is based on your interaction with
Yeah.
Him. And then if you do that, like, that's why, I mean, incarnation was that. I mean, people flooded to Jesus. And the reason they flooded to Him was because they're like, who is this that speaks with such authority, they said.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Who is this? Like,
Yeah.
He's talking in ways we've never heard.
And the Pharisees even said, "We hear what you're saying, we see what you're doing, we hear what you're preaching, and we know you're from.
We
God.
know you're from
we
God.
know you're from the Father,
Yeah.
but we don't like you."
Yeah. Like,
I mean that. Yeah.
what you're saying has got so much, you
Yeah.
know, how did you, like, you're reading my mail, like, how did you, and it's like,
Yeah.
no. If I know exactly what I'm doing, exactly what I'm for, and it's just to inspire people who are walking away. And so to me, the way I envision it is, there's people who are walking around who come to church one time and they're like, you know what, this is which church typically is the last ditch effort for marriage, for kids,
Yep.
for
Yep.
whatever
Yep.
tumultuous time you're going through, addiction,
Yeah.
whatever it is, and they give church one shot.
Yeah.
And it's like, here's what I always think. You came to the right place.
Yeah.
You came to the right, not because of me, but because
Right.
it's like you don't understand don't understand that you're the target now. That when you walked in here, you were like, well, this is the last bit. And I know what I'm for. And it's not that I'm inspiring.
Yeah,
It's that
right.
this is what happens if I dive into the Word and I find something that just blows my hair back.
Yeah.
Then that's what I'm doing. I'm bringing it in. It's like hot coals, and you stand at the pulpit and you fling it over the people, and then you say something to the effect of, as far as I can tell, this is kind of what God is like.
Right.
And people are at the door going,
Huh.
you mean to tell me you think that's what He's like? Like, to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
Dang it. I guess I'll give this another shot.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And to me, like, knowing that,
Yeah.
I got to inspire my kids.
Yes.
So I want to
Yes.
inspire my kids. I want to inspire my wife.
Yeah.
I want to inspire my friends, you know? And it's
Yeah.
like, this is what I do. It's not, I don't have vast amount of wisdom. I can't recall quotes from Marcus Aurelius. I don't have any of that, you know?
Right. I'm just glad you were able to call up Marcus Aurelius. I'd have sat here and go, what's that guy's name? You know,
But that's to me is
Yeah.
what you're doing is so cool because it fits so well into that picture of like, what is it that you do? What do
Yeah.
you, and it, like, you're just, I mean, as soon as that changed, everything about you changed.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And what's amazing is not to give you too much credit, but that came out of the inspiration. Exactly what you found your what for.
Yeah, that's right.
And that influenced me to find mine. And maybe it's the girly cigars, and I'm getting all emotional up in here. But I mean you live that out, and it's causing the three of us and others to live it out. So thank you, bro.
Well, appreciate it.
One of those things too that I know that you were called to do is you wrote a book.
Did.
And you're not an author.
True.
How long did it take you? I know from the story, we've had this conversation, but it took you a minute from when God told you to write the book to when it actually was written. Tell us about the book. Tell us the name of the book, where they can find it, but tell us the heart of it.
Yeah. Name of the book is The Warrior's Rune. Rune is a song. It's sometimes it's translated as a prayer, or maybe even a token. So the warrior's prayer, or maybe song, the warrior's song, which that comes from the 2 Samuel passage where David sings this song and tells all of Israel, teach this song to your sons, teach this to your daughters, and then he sings this song about Saul and Jonathan, and like right in front of all his men, and like this is what you need to know right here. And there's so much packed into that. We need to talk about that at some point too. But when I started writing the book, like it was just because of the love of like the character of David, which there's no shortage of books on David. So as I begin to start writing this book, I'm like, you know what the world needs? Another book on David. It needs my thoughts on David. I don't know if he's got the heart after God. It's like, oh yeah, and he's a warrior and a poet. It's like, say something new, would you? You know? And so in that, like I just fell in love with that story. But there were so many other characters and complex relationships involved in there that we've talked about this before. The privacy fence illustration of if you stand and look at a privacy fence, you can't see what's going on behind it. But if you drive by at 60 miles an hour, you can see everything in the yard. You know,
because those gaps.
Yeah, that's right. And in that story in 1 Samuel, there's so many gaps in there that when you begin to see it, it's like I can't help but imagine. As you can tell, I'm kind of an imaginative guy. I can't help but imagine, like, what are these relationships and what are those conversations and what did these covenants sound like, and why was Jonathan the one that was always initiating the covenant and David wasn't? David was the one who was seemingly really soft and a little song oriented, and he's either gonna pick up a weapon or a harp at some point, you know. And so I just fell in love with that. And so when I started to write, it was really just dumb. It was just so the way I was writing, it was so dumb because I was trying to write like other people wrote. Which is always dumb. It's always dumb to try to
just copy somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, be yourself. Everybody else is taken, right? I mean, it's that. And so I start working on this, and then I meet the problem. You know, and the problem shows up, and it shows up in a blinking cursor. You know, it's like, what? How in the world? And I really did. I felt like God was saying, hey, like, I want you to write this story. And I'm like, you know, like, Charles Swindoll wrote this story. Like,
right.
I don't know that, let's see, like, God wrote it, then Charles Swindoll wrote it. I don't know that I've got anything to offer from this point on, you know? It's like, no, you write it. Like, you write it. And so it probably took me about 10 years to build up the confidence, to find the voice. I mean, I got files that are they're dated so far back, it's embarrassing to even talk about. And then it was kind of got to this point. I'll tell you, this is the way I was praying one day, and I was just like, yo, I can't do this book. I can't do this book. And man, I could just hear the Spirit say, I can find somebody else. And I tell you what, the man thing in me, that thing that's like, if my wife said she's going to call a plumber, you know, if my wife said she's going to go find somebody to fix the mower, you better hang that phone up. And when the Lord's like, I'll find somebody else, I was like, listen, I'm not going to stand by and watch this book show up. And then
that should have been mine.
Some other dude standing there, like, I'm doing it. Like, I don't want to question that. I don't want to.
Which I don't mean to interrupt, but that's a really important part, because when it's God's will, it's gonna happen.
Yes.
And either you do it or you get out of the way and let God's will happen through somebody else. And it's better always to be a part of it. Than to be on the sidelines.
Well, and when you start addressing the reasons why you're not doing it. Fear.
That's coward.
Yeah, it's always cowardice.
Yeah, always cowardice.
It's always cowardice.
Yeah.
And it's like, why won't you write it? Because someone's going to think I'm dumb. It's like, guess what? People already think you're dumb.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, what if it goes out and it's not good and I'm not, like, my grammar's horrible, which my grammar is horrible. What my spelling? My spelling's horrible. Listen, 4 editors got their hands on this book, and when I got the first one in print, there was like 47 more errors after that.
They were so tired going through your errors.
Yeah, I ran through editors, like, I mean, they were just like, dude, I give up. I don't even know what you're trying to say here.
I'm not called to do this anymore.
Like, you've got characters together that have never supposed to be together. Like, this is out here. You know how often people use that symbol? And no one stop doing this, you know?
Yeah.
And you can't use a pound sign in the middle of a sentence. Like, what do you know? It's like, this is, and I'm just running through. And then it finally got to the point where I was like, you know what? Just write.
Yeah.
Write it the way you see it. And so that opened up another avenue, which you didn't ask about, but let me just plug it anyway. Then that became, the reason why it was so hard is because it was the audio book that I had in my head.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a very visual person. And so with words, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
I want to paint a picture for you.
Yeah.
So that you see it, like see it.
Well, that's the preacher in you. You've got a lot of preachers that are good authors and write a great book, and then you go visit their church and they're terrible in the pulpit.
I've heard that.
And I'm not going to name any names. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus on that, but I'm thinking of 2 specific ones. But then you have preachers who are phenomenal preachers, and they put books out, and you're like, that's trash.
Yeah.
Because it's just not their giftedness.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You know, not everybody's going to be both an author and a preacher, you know.
I got a buddy who went and listened to Max Lucado, a buddy of mine did.
You threw the name out there. That was the first name in my head.
I will. I'm diming everybody out. But he went and listened to Max Lucado preach, and he was like,
that was boring.
Wasn't much to it?
Yeah.
It's like, but get his words on paper.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
and sell a bajillion copies.
Beautiful.
You know,
Yeah.
and and it just, I mean, that's the go-to. You know, if you need Christmas sermons, you got to pick up.
So you had to change the pattern of your writing, and we talked about this when when the book was released. We got together and Sergio put people together like he always does.
Yeah.
And you kind of gave us your heart on it, and one of the things you mentioned in that was that what changed for you is when you started looking at it as an audio book, and instead of pushing it as a book to buy and read, that instead go listen to the audio of it, because then that's when your heart comes out.
Oh yeah.
There's a couple of books that I've read or listened to on audio and read, and the book in written form was just awful and hard to get through. But then when you hear it in audio and the author's the one who reads it to you,
that's right.
You hear the heart in it. Shane Wood's book, Between Two Trees. That was the first one that when you hear his heart and the emotion when he's talking about his son, and they adopted a son, and they had to deal with racism in his own family. His grandma was very racist, and you know, he's sitting there wondering about, will she even hold my child? You know, and I mean, it's just you can hear him almost cracking and breaking in that, and you just really get the heart of it. You get that out of yours as well.
I appreciate that.
Where you just the thing I love about you, and the reason we wanted you on here, is that iron sharpening iron that really comes out in that book so well. And the shirt you're wearing is the, I mean, that's I'm glad you wore it today. But this idea of men making other men stronger and making other men, that comes out in the book, in the audio book for sure.
Well, I'll tell you one of the things that happened. I was in a men's group one night, and a guy said to me, I was just telling them how I was having a really off day, and I was in a bad mood, and I just sensed some discontentment in my life. And I went to a men's meeting that night, and a guy said to me, so how's the book coming? And I just lied right to my teeth. He's like, how's the book going? I'm like, yeah. And the good thing about working on a book is that if anybody ever asks, are you working on a book? You can say yes, because you're kind of always working on a book. So he's like, so are you working on your book? And he's like, yeah. I mean, he's like, have you written stuff? I'm like,
the first page.
No.
The introduction.
I haven't written anything in a while. I just kind of quit on it. And the guy goes, makes sense. I said, what do you mean makes sense? And this is a guy that we go to church together, and he says, well, I mean, it just makes sense. You're discontent, and you're not being obedient to what God wants.
Wow. A guy calling his preacher out like that. That's bold.
I looked at him and I said, it sounds like you need to go to a new church. And he said, I'm just telling you the sermons I've heard.
Oh, man.
And I was just like,
oh, man.
But he was right, you know, and there's that discontentment of like, it does, like the results aren't on us. It's not on me. The results don't weigh on me.
Yeah.
What happens with Cigar Church Like the results don't have anything to do with you guys. Like it's not. It's like do the thing that you're made to do.
Yeah.
And even if you're not sure if this is the thing you're made to do, if you're convinced on some level, like this is what you're supposed to do. So I started writing, and it probably took me 10 years to get up the confidence. It probably took me about 18 months to knock it out. It took us about a year to record the audio, and the reason it took a year to do the audio was because I hired Caleb Paxton.
Yeah, the music side of it. Yeah.
And we scored the whole thing like a film. And so what we kept talking about was this book is theater for the mind. You know, that way it's when you listen to it, like it draws you in.
Yeah.
Here's one of the. And I've probably said this before, but anytime you watch a Christian film that's based on history, the cast is always wrong. David is never cast right. Goliath's never cast right. Jesus is never cast right. You know, like you look at these guys and like, that's not what I would have. I would have picked somebody different. I would have. Doesn't look like the right guy. The good thing about this is that there's no visual, and so in your mind, the character's always right. It's always right. You know, to me, that was a big deal. That was a big deal.
Cool, man. Cool. Let's shift gears a little bit.
Sure.
Let's dig into some of the word, and this is really important in the conversation that we're having. And I don't want to cut it short. It's gonna be one of our longer episodes, Dan. You got a lot of editing and work to do ahead of you.
Sorry, Dan.
But no, it's good. This has been wonderful. We're actually gonna smoke through these cigars. Dan's almost done.
I'm almost done. I am so close.
Are you excited that you're almost done with that flavored cigar?
I almost.
Let me ask you this. Let me just ask you this before we jump into the word.
Yeah.
Do you feel like embracing some of your more feminine characteristics smoking this cigar? Do you feel like you guys' marriages and relationships are getting better and better? Do you feel like you're feeling the spirit a little bit better?
That's weird.
You feel like maybe the spirit's kind of moving in your heart a little bit easier?
Listen, I've been on the road for a couple of days, doing some work for the church, and I'm missing my wife right now. So you bringing that up, is going to be a little weird.
Well, you're welcome.
So yeah.
You're welcome.
Now I'm going to tell you, it's not that terrible of a cigar. I probably won't smoke it again, but for today it works.
Okay.
And I feel like I'm channeling a little bit of my Jared Ellis as I'm doing it. Maybe that'll make me a better man.
Yeah,
I don't know.
well.
We'll see. So your book is on the story of David, and so let's look at part of that story. What kind of threw me when I listened to the book, you spend a lot less time on David than you do all the other characters.
Yeah.
And one of those characters is King Saul, who was David's predecessor to the crown. And one of those beautiful things, I'm just going to read a little bit of the story of when his day came. When Saul's been anointed, how much time was it between his anointing and the day that he was finally established? Do you remember? It's quite a bit of time. And that's one of the things we don't talk about enough. Is that there's a lot of times God lays his hand on you. Yeah. And says, I'm calling you to this purpose. But not yet. And that time of waiting and developing sucks. It's invaluable, but it's hard. It's hard to get through that.
It's a lot of trimming.
A lot of trimming on that vine, man.
A lot of
pruning on that tree. Yeah. And so his day came. And in 1 Samuel chapter 9, it says, now the day before Saul came, and the Lord had revealed this to Samuel. About this time tomorrow, I will send you a man from the land of Benjamin. Anoint him ruler over my people Israel. He will deliver them from the hand of the Philistines. I have looked on my people, for the cry has reached me. And when Samuel caught sight of Saul, the Lord said to him, this is the man I spoke to you about. He will govern my people. Saul approached Samuel in the gateway and asked, would you please tell me where the seer's house is? And he goes into this story just about the seer. But what is beautiful about just this moment of calling is that God sees Saul for who he is. And not just sees where he's at, but sees where he could be. And everything we've been talking about so far, all the stories of our time on the Homiless podcast, and all of that, just brings me back to the story every time. Because when Samuel saw Saul, there had to be this stirring in his heart. He's laying eyes on God answering the cries of his people, and we don't talk about that enough. What the people wanted was against God's purpose. God said that I'm going to be the king of my people. They don't need an earthly king. Every other nation has an earthly king. They are set apart. I am their king. They reject God as their king and say, we want a king like everybody else has. And God answers that and says, okay, you don't know what you're asking for, but okay, you get one. And God calls this man Saul. And hindsight being 2020, we look at Saul and we go, man, that dude messed up. That guy messed up. But God's purpose for him still stood. And what God saw in him, even though God knew that he would mess up and knew that he would have to pull him from the throne and bring a whole nother family line in, which is David. And there's such a great story of the purpose of David's lineage all the way to Christ. And that's for a whole nother long episode another day. But even though knowing that Saul would mess up, God still had purpose for him, and God still called him. So let's talk about that a little bit with the point of the book, with this idea of our lives and our calling. And for us, it's Cigar Church. For you, it may be something totally different at home. But how reassuring is that?
Yeah.
Knowing that God knows our story from the start to the end. He knows the mistakes we're going to make. He knows where we're going to step outside of that will, but he still has a calling and a purpose. Back to your story about him crafting you with the angels looking over his shoulder. He still has a purpose, and he still has laid his hand on you, and others get to see that.
Yeah.
Others get to see that. What do we do with that? You guys have been quiet this whole time.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? What do you see? God's hand is laid on you, and what is that? What is that like? What does that feel like?
For me, I've been in ministry off and on for 20 years.
Yeah.
Over 20 years, and it's one of those things that I make the joke. I'm a professional runner from God, and because. Your story was really interesting because, and I'll dwell into this just a little bit, because I'm very much like you. I'm a picture guy, and the Lord has always used that in my life to speak to me. And I had a dream / whatever you call it, and where God was, I walked up to this little house on a hill, little cottage thing, and I walked in, and God was working on a potter's wheel. And he was sitting there, and I saw him, and I was like, "Oh God, what you doing?" And he's like, "I'm making a man of 7 anointings." And I suddenly got mad, and I'm like, "Who the heck deserves 7 anointings? What the heck are you doing that for? That's really irritating, God. Why would you favor this man with 7 anointings?" Blah blah blah. And he turned it.
My anointing?
Yeah, and he turned it around, and it was me. And then suddenly, I went from anger to immediate fear. Mm-hmm. Because suddenly I'm like, wait a minute, I don't want that. And it was jarring to me, because suddenly I was almost in a jealous state, because I'm like, why, who was this guy? Blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, okay, here, this is you. And then suddenly I'm like, no, I don't want that responsibility. Wait a minute. But throughout my life and my ministry and things that I've done through the years, God has used me in ways that are unorthodox. And here I am in Cigar Church, but because of that, I love the story that you told about the camera and that whole vision, because I feel like, God placed me on the earth and said, okay, you're not going to look everybody like everything else. I got my Bible degree. My thought was, I'm going to go back. I'm going into full-time ministry, and I'm going to do the thing that everybody does.
Yeah.
And God's like, nah, you're not going to do the thing everybody does. You're called for a different purpose. But for me, it's almost a thing of fear, in that, I think there's a fear, what if I can't do it? What if I can't write the book? What if I mess up? What if what if I miss it? And God's like,
Saul mess up.
Yeah, but God's like, just do what you do. Mm-hmm. Just go out there and just do what you do, because your experiences, everything I've gone through, all these things that I've experienced through my walk has led me to where I'm at. And he's like, you don't have to do anything special. You just be who you are. Just do your thing.
Yeah.
And it takes pressure off, but then at the same time, it also puts pressure on.
Yeah.
Because it's not about performing. It's just about being who you are. And a long time ago, we have this picture of humility in our head. It's like, okay, to be humble, God, I've just got to walk around with my head down and just do my thing. And God's like, that's not humility. Humility is just being who you are, not thinking more of yourself,
authentic self.
But be who you are and do what you do.
Yeah.
That's true humility.
Yeah.
Not building yourself up, not blowing it up, saying, well, look at me, look at all this stuff I've done. It's just doing what you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, I thought, for me, first thing that came to mind was, why does that guy have 7 anointings? Because this idiot's going to miss 6 of them.
Yeah,
You know?
that's true about you, Dan.
Yeah, it is. He tagged me. Look at that.
No, but I mean, for me,
He can't read people.
no, but if it's me, it's like that's the first place I go. Why in the world would he need 7?
Right,
It's like,
right.
Because I'm probably going to botch 6 of them.
Yeah.
You know,
But that
Yeah,
last
no,
one.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, that last one.
you know, or the times that you need this one now, you need this now, you
Yeah.
need this now, you
Yeah.
need this.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's being a husband or whether it's being a dad or whether it's being a friend or whether it's being,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But that's the amazing thing
good.
about it. Looking at that picture, a man of 7 anointings. Well, what does that really mean? That just means you're equipped to do certain things.
That's a great story.
And we get this picture of, well, man of 7 anointings. He must be, he's going to be the next John the Baptist or whatever.
No.
You completely miss the idea because the point of that whole thing is if you look at it different, you have 7 tools. This is a man that I've given 7 tools to do things.
Yeah.
Big, small, great, tiny, whatever it is, just use what you
Well,
got.
and even the number 7 in Scripture isn't necessarily about the numerical, idea of 7 things. It's completeness and it's wholeness
Yeah, it's
and
good.
it's perfect.
Right.
It's that perfection number, and so His anointing is perfected in you. That's amazing. So cool, very good, very good. This has been a great episode. I love the conversation, and we really want you to go and check out Jared's Homilist podcast. It's about to change.
About to change. Get a rebrand.
The
and
mode
everything.
that you've been doing. Are you going to call it the Homilist?
Yeah, it's the Homilist.
Okay.
It's the
I was
Homilist.
about to say, you can't change the name.
No.
Can't change the name. But go check out some of the past episodes. How many episodes do you have? It's been quite a few.
I don't know. I think there's like 40 interviews.
Okay.
Maybe 45
And
interviews.
so there's going to be a lot of preachers you know. Some of them you don't know, but they're all equally. There's
some of them you
great
like,
ones.
some of them you probably won't like.
Yeah.
You know?
There's one of them. I'm not going to. You name names. He's on there. I wasn't going to use old boy's name a second ago.
Give me a hint. I'll drop his name.
Oh gosh! Once again, I'm the name slipping my mind. Rob Bell. You had Rob Bell on there, and Rob Bell was one of those guys that nobody could talk to him. He was so in demand.
He was plutonium.
And then he blew up. Plutonium.
Yeah,
just
you get near him and you're now.
Yeah.
I almost got in a really ugly situation in a diner because of that episode.
Really?
Wow.
There's a pastor at the church that called me and he's like, "Yo, and
What are you doing?"
Yeah, he's like, "Yo, you put him in front of God's people, and he's a heretic." And it was. And listen, by the time I'm in a conversation with this dude at this diner, I'm trying to channel my best Clay Ashley and try to be kind. And listen, what's going through my head is nothing but violent intentions.
Yeah. Oh my
I'm looking across it and I'm thinking, I will take this dude out in the parking lot and I will dent every car with this dude. You know, I will. Yeah. And I'm having this conversation. I had to go into the bathroom. I was like, "Hey, can you excuse me a second?" I went into the bathroom. I looked in the mirror and I was just like, yo, like you shut your stuff out. Like I'm looking in the mirror and I'm like, he got you. Like he got you mad. Like you need to breathe for a second. Go back out there. You need to be Jesus at that table. And it was just like, I'm looking at me. Your face is all red. You're all wound. Like, oh man. He had me cranked. I went back out and I sat down with him and I was like, "Brother, listen. I think it's okay if we disagree on this." Yeah. I'm not making a case for Rob Bell.
And you having on the show, wasn't you like endorsing him?
Oh yeah, no, and that was
just
this guy's
conversation.
Yeah, that was this guy's
just
thing.
a conversation. And I'm sitting here thinking, man, the only reason I'm that kind is because in a situation like that, I'm too soft for prison. If I'd have bashed that dude's head in, and I get to prison, everybody's looking at me going, "Oh yeah, this guy, we're ready for him."
I was just waiting on the green light from the Lord. That's all I was waiting on. I was waiting on the green light from the Lord. You just say it's okay. I'll grab this man up right now, and I will beat him in the name of Jesus.
Man.
Like this
guy's got story after story like this. This is what I love about him. We'll have to talk tonight when we're sitting at Nathan's place. And talk about. You got to tell me that story one more time about the baseball game. The guy yelling. Oh, I love that story. You had me rolling the first time I heard that. And if you know Jerry, you got to ask him about the baseball game. So, but we got to wrap things up. Check out the Homilist podcast and go subscribe to that. You will not be disappointed in what you see there. What's coming up is going to be really cool as well. Pretty excited about that.
And the book.
The book, yeah, get on. It's on
Amazon?
On Amazon. What else? Just Amazon.
And Audible.
And Audible. Okay.
Amazon. And it's on Kindle as well.
And
So
yeah,
if you're
and
Kindle
buy a copy. Give this guy, you got to buy the audio book.
Yeah.
But get a physical copy of it so that you can mark it all up with all of his errors, and you can get him to audit. He will not sign a book
Looking for another editor. Always looking for another editor.
But man, help this guy out. He doesn't need the ego boost, but he could sure use some help there.
I'm humble just being me, Clay.
Yeah,
That's all
absolutely.
I'm doing. I'm humble
Absolutely.
just being me.
But before we go, we got a few things. Dan?
Yeah, if you like what you see, subscribe and tickle the bell icon. What do you think of that, Jerry?
I like that. That's all right.
See,
That's new.
see.
I like that it's not hit the bell.
It
tag
fits
the
today because we're smoking girly cigars.
Ring the bell.
Oh yeah, light your flavored cigar.
Tickle the bell, smoke a flavored cigar.
That's a good short right there.
Hey, and I'm going to add to that. Don't just tickle the bell, but share it. Get on your social media and share our stuff. It gets us out there more. There's somebody out there that you know that needs to hear what we're talking about today. Maybe a guy just struggling with what it means to be a man and follow Christ. Maybe somebody who's struggling with I want to believe in God, but I'm struggling with the church. And start that conversation with them. Share it. I guarantee you they're going to ask you first. You can come and talk to us. You can give us a comment, and we'll help you answer questions. But it'll open a communication with you and some of your buddies about your faith. And it's an easy way to do that. So share our stuff. Tickle the bell. What else, Steve?
You got any prayer requests? Put it in the comments or email me, stevecigarchurch@gmail.com, or contact cigarchurch@gmail.com. Either one.
Yeah, absolutely. And buy our stuff. We got shirts, we got stickers, we got all kinds of stuff out there. Rep Cigar Church for us. And as always, maybe not today, but smoke a fine cigar to the glory of God. Today is smoke a flavored cigar to the glory of God. I don't know how you do that, but smoke what you're smoking to the glory of God. We'll see you next week. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having me.